Rest in the shade of his wings. Take it easy, easy. God already loves you completely. Take it easy, easy. Rest in the shade of his wings. Rest in the shade of his wings. Rest in the shade of his wings. I wanna be where my feet are. I wanna breathe the light around me. I wanna listen as my heart beats right on time. I wanna be where my feet are. I chase my worries, I flee my sorrows, but what you give me is now. So take my burdens and my tomorrows. I wanna be where my feet are. I wanna be where my feet are. I wanna breathe the light around me. I wanna listen as my heart beats right on time. I wanna be where my feet are.
Hi everyone, I'm Zander. For those of you who don't know me, a little bit about myself. I'm a senior this year. I'm from a small town called Chelsea, Michigan. My time here at Calvin, I'm a data science major. I've been involved in the cross-country and track programs. And today I'm here because I want to share a story. You probably can't guess this by the verse on the screen, but it's a story about sexual brokenness, my own. And as a runner, I've done a lot of crazy things. Probably some things that most runners would call crazy, right, guys? Yeah. But this definitely tops them all for sure. Before I get into the details of my story, I think it's important to explain what I mean when I say sexual morality, because odds are not everyone in the room has full agreement on what that means. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. That you're still going to be able to get just as much out of my story. But for the sake of, so that you know what I'm talking about, I think it's important to define it. So when I say sexual immorality, what I mean is, the definition I like to use is this: anything that is causing stimulation or sexual pleasure with anyone you're not married to, in any context that's not with someone that you're married to, then it is sinful. So this includes things like masturbation, pornography, sex outside of marriage. In Matthew 5, Jesus says that if a man looks lustfully at a woman, then he's already committed adultery with her in his heart. Again, you don't have to agree with me, but those are words that I hold pretty strongly to. And yeah. So when I was a kid, I learned to keep my emotions to myself. Like a lot of the times, whatever I was thinking or feeling, it would just stay with me, and it would never really, I would never tell anyone. And I don't know, there's a lot of things that contribute to that, but more or less, I guess it was just how I was raised. And somewhere along the way, I started to feel this anxiety. Whenever I would find myself physically alone as a child, I would get really scared and really stressed out, and it felt like someone was just putting me in this box, and I'm trying to escape, and escaping looks as simple as just finding another person, and then just a huge wave of relief after that. And this sort of anxiety has manifested itself in my life in a lot of different ways, but I think it's always been present in some way. And I tell you this because some of you here probably see pornography as something that people turn to, just to get off, just to get by and, relieve themselves. But in my experience, there's something a lot deeper going on. It's not just about sexual pleasure. There's this void in my heart that when I turn to those things, it immediately just wraps around that. And it makes it so that I don't have to feel those emotions of fear and loneliness, and it's soothing, and it's medicating to those things, and it makes it so that I don't have to face those emotions. So when I discovered porn and masturbation at the age of 12, I became really quickly addicted. It became a daily thing, and often multiple times a day. And for 2 years that went on before eventually I started to feel a conviction from the Holy Spirit that was it was sort of chipping away slowly at these walls that I had put up, and eventually it got to the point that I couldn't ignore those voices anymore, and I knew I had to do something, and I knew what the Bible said, and I knew that what I was doing was sinful. And I want to introduce someone. His name is Nico. He's my best friend in the whole world. He's sitting right there. And Nico was the only person in school growing up who I knew who was rock solid in his faith, other than myself. That there were plenty of Christians at our public high school, but none of them took their faith seriously quite like Nico did. And so one day when we were getting lunch, I sat down, it was just the two of us, and I said, Nico, I struggle with this, and I think I need to stop, and I don't know how. And he shared, he had similar struggles, and so from then on we were accountability partners, and when I would give in, I would tell him, and when he gave in, he would tell me, and we would lift each other up, and we would support each other, and we made it so that we didn't have to be alone. And our approach was pretty simple. We wanted to stop masturbating, stop looking at porn, stop any forms of sexual immorality. But if you know anything about an addiction, you know that simply trying to stop doesn't work. There's this movement in the 80s called Just Say No. It was for the war on drugs. And the whole campaign was, just say no to drugs. Just don't do them. Just stop, right? And so people would try to stop. But when all they were doing was trying to stop, they would realize how trapped they were. And so then, the whole movement, it really wasn't effective because all it was effective at doing was showing people how trapped they were. And that didn't give hope to anybody. So we realize this eventually. Like, this isn't just some behavior that you can remove from your life, that it has to be replaced with something else. And that something we learned after a while was pursuit of Jesus and his love and his character and friendship, most importantly, vulnerability and fellowship with other Christians. And I started to recognize this, I think, toward the end of high school, that this is something that I really need more of. And, we were going off to college, and I was going to Calvin, and Nico went off to U of M, and that's great, but that meant that we weren't going to be close together anymore, and we weren't going to have as effective of accountability as we used to. And so when I came to campus, I knew I had to reach out to I had to bring somebody into my experience. And I mean, I was desperate. Like, I knew I needed it, and I know, like reaching out to people about something like that is difficult, right? And it really was at first. But I got over that by just this really helpful reminder that I always tell myself, that we're all broken. And my brokenness looks a little different than yours, but we're all broken. And so if I'm going to reach out to anyone about this, and they love the Lord, that they're not going to judge me for it, and they're only going to support me. And so when I showed up on campus, I just started saying, Lord, show me Christian men who serve you and who can walk through this with me. And I did, and I reached out to them. And you know what I found when I decided to be vulnerable with people? They would be vulnerable back, and they would tell me things, really personal things, that they never would have told me if I hadn't said anything. And I realized that there's so much power in being vulnerable with people, because there's just nothing, in my experience, there's nothing more powerful than having someone standing next to me saying, I'm going to walk through this with you, and you're not alone, and I am right here, and I'm not going anywhere. That for them to say that, and to know that you would say that back to them, that there's nothing more powerful than that. And this sort of relationship became something that I have spent my entire 4 years here trying to find, and trying to just have more and more of that. And there have been times when I've had good support structures, and there have been times when I've had when it seems like it's all just falling apart and I don't have anyone to reach out to. And there's a lot of variables that come into play when sometimes someone will move away, or they'll graduate, and then I lose that close contact with them. But there's one thing that has stood out over everything else that has determined how much accountability I have, and it's my own willingness to be vulnerable. Every single time, that's the number one thing that determines how much accountability I have. Because if I'm not willing to be vulnerable with the people who I'm closest to, then all those things, they're just going to stick with me and stay with me, and they start to fester, and they get worse and worse, and it's just like it was for the first 18 years of my life, and I can't go back to doing that. And so it just gets worse and worse until eventually I have to tell somebody. And this is something that's constantly recurring. Like, this doesn't change. There's not a point when I say, okay, I have enough accountability now, and I'm good. As soon as I lose that, I immediately start backsliding, always. And I don't think that's ever going to change. I think that's just part of how we were made. It's our fallen nature. When I was last summer, I went on a date for the first time since high school. It had been a long time, and I went into this with no expectations really, but it turned into something that I like. It was the type of relationship that I always knew was possible, but like I never thought it would actually happen to me. Where I loved spending time with her, and every time I would see her, I would leave feeling so refreshed and so like it felt like just spending time with her, I just got closer to the Lord, and every single time, and I've never felt anything like that, and I've never been more excited to spend time with someone. But it didn't last. We broke up at the end of August, and out of respect for her, I'm not going to say anything about that. But following that breakup, I was really crushed. I was confused. But I felt this sort of motivation, this push from the Spirit, and I just felt really like determined to get to the bottom of like when I turn to porn or other forms of sexual immorality, like what is it that I'm really desiring? Because clearly I was made for something a lot better than that. And I just kept digging and digging and just determined to turn over like every stone to find the answers. And this is what I found. I learned that, at its base, fundamentally, that sex is something that it's a desire for connection, right? It's a desire for relationship. And I think that's why I've struggled so much, because that's something that was really missing in my life for a long time, and that this battle that I've been in for like almost half my life now, that it was never supposed to be about fighting my sexual desires. It is never about beating my addiction, right? Like it's about seeing how the way that God designed sex to be, and recognizing how much better that is than anything I could use to try to replace it. Before I had gone on a date with that person last summer, I'd always known that kind of at a head level. But now it was staring me right in the face, and like I just couldn't ignore it. And it was like I had a taste of what this is what marriage is supposed to be like, and I just couldn't help but see like how much better it is than anything I've ever chased after. That it all falls so far short of that experience. And for you who are listening today, if you're struggling with this, I want you to know that sexual freedom is possible for you. That through addressing the pain and the brokenness of your own story, that no matter how much you face, that it is possible for you. There was a time in my life, little over 2 years ago, when I believed that it wasn't possible. That I started to realize this emptiness in my heart for what it was, and I started to think maybe this is something that's not going to change on earth. That it's just something I'm going to deal with forever, and it's just some curse that I'm going to deal with my whole life. And I wrestled with God, and I wrestled with those questions. I asked him, why would you put me through this, and if you can save me, then why don't you do it? And I wrestled with those, and I brought people in, and I talked those questions through with people, and eventually I think I got some answers, and I'll just tell you them. And this is the best part, guys. That all those things, all the pain, all the frustration, all of the times when I asked myself, why am I continuing to turn to this thing that I know won't satisfy me? That it all had a purpose, and it was pointing me to Jesus. And as long as I'm willing to ask the question, Lord, where do I need to change? Show me in my heart where I need to change. And I listen and I respond to that I'm on an inevitable path that ends in freedom. And so whatever, for you who are listening, whatever you are struggling with right now, I promise that God has a purpose, and by asking the question, Lord, show me where I need to change, and if you ask that question and you listen and you respond, that you're on an inevitable path to freedom. Let's pray. Dear God, I pray that you would do amazing things in our lives, in the lives of everyone here, greater than we can even imagine. I pray that you'd help anyone here who's struggling and seeing your purpose in their lives, that you would provide people in their lives to walk through that struggle with them, and help them to be vulnerable with the people who are closest to them, and know that they can trust them, that there's nothing better in their life than reaching out to that person, and that's where you're working at your best, in those relationships. Lord, thank you that everything I've experienced had a purpose. Thank you that we have hope in your Son and everything that he's done for us. And I pray that would resonate with everyone here as we go about our day and about our week. And send us forth from this place with a renewed sense of healing, and that we would find comfort in your love and pursuit of your character and all the people in our lives. And I ask this all in your name. Amen. Go in peace.